BBC Radio London.
17 minutes past 7. A plan to stop all cars and taxis from using the busy junction at Bank is due to be considered by the City of London. The idea is to remove all vehicles except buses and make the junction a major public space in the square mile. The proposals will go before the City's Streets and Walkways Committee on November the 30th. Donnachadh McCarthy is the co-founder of Stop Killing Cyclists and joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nikki.
So what do you think of this idea?
Well, we're very pleased with this as a major step forward. We organised a major protest and die-in there after the terrible killing of Ying Tao earlier this year. And we set out the vision that Bank should be a beautiful public square in the heart of the city, and we're delighted that the City of London is making a step in this direction.
Would you be concerned about where the traffic that normally would have passed through this junction will now go, Donnachadh?
Well, one of the things that we have found when you do major road reallocations projects like this is that some of the traffic just switches to more positive ways of travelling, such as the underground, the cycling or walking. The city really wasn't designed for cars and buses and trucks like they're roaring down its streets, and it's really dangerous.
Well, of course, in most cases they don't roar down the streets, they kind of crawl down and get impatient, and that's when people lose their concentration.
Well, the idea that this is one of the most dangerous junctions in London. Have you ever walked through it or cycled through it?
I have many times. I've driven through it in the past, not for years now, and I've certainly walked through it a lot, and it really is, the pressure on it seems immense because, of course, pedestrians are desperate to cross, cyclists are desperate to cross, and the buses and cabs are also having a go.
But then how much safer would it be, Donnachadh, because they're saying that buses would still be allowed through?
That's what we have said. It's a major positive step forward. The tiny, narrow streets that all converge at that junction really aren't designed for major buses and cyclists and pedestrians to be mixing together.
So you don't want buses either, then?
Ideally, we would want most of the buses removed as well.
Right.
Actually, that's what we've also called for at Oxford Street, and all of the mayoral candidates are now recognising that these major squares they're actually squares in our city, are dominated by dangerous polluting traffic, and if we move to a more active travel, walking and cycling culture in the heart of London, it becomes better. It's healthier for people, it's safer, but not only that, it makes a much better environment for people to shop and work in.
We did cover the fact that the Oxford Street, Oxford Circus crossing has become a sort of X-factor crossing where you can cross diagonally. Have you got any even anecdotal thoughts about that? Have people said anything to you about whether that feels safer now or simply just more complicated?
Well, the X, we haven't had feedback on that, except that the greater space for pedestrians, obviously, that's a hugely congested area for pedestrians, and creating more space for pedestrians has been a positive. We just feel that we're delighted that all of the mayoral candidates support both proposals on Bank, which we had actually called for as well, and Oxford Street. So it's a small step forward, but we must look at the wider picture in the City of London. They have constantly opposed segregated cycle lanes for cyclists, and up to now they've been a very backward-looking council. So this is the first crack in the armour, then we hopefully look for much more positive news in the future.
As I understand it, that one of the reasons in the past, and we've spoken to the City of London about this, in the past they've had reservations about the dedicated cycle lanes, is exactly the reason you've mentioned. The streets are so narrow because it's a medieval part of the city.
Yeah, so it's quite ironic that they should object to cyclists using narrow streets but not buses and HGV trucks. So that just doesn't make sense. And what's really exciting from our point of view is that with the superhighway campaign through the City of London, there was an amazing coalition of the major corporations and businesses working there, as well as cyclists and pedestrians, who came together and said, we need a city that's fit for people. And so it's not either or. The businesses that work in the city recognise that they have to have a safe and positive, nice environment for their employees and their visitors and the executives that visit from abroad.
Donnachadh McCarthy, thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for your thoughts on the idea of removing all vehicles except buses to make that junction at Bank, which is considered to be quite a dangerous, really exceedingly busy junction for pedestrians, cyclists, cars alike.
I mean, there's a real bottleneck there. Also, you get a real sense of slight danger, or at least people being anxious when it's the rush hour, because everybody piles out the tube stations and piles off the buses and wants to cross and move around or whatever. Similarly, the cars and buses get held up. So where else in London do you think might benefit from this change? And do you agree with Donnachadh there that maybe buses should be taken out of the equation as well, just make it effectively a square rather than a junction? except as a junction for cyclists and pedestrians. Your thoughts, please. 0207 224 2000. You were saying how you love it over Christmas when Oxford Street becomes basically one big pedestrian cycling thoroughfare.
You know, I say that, but I never walk down Oxford Street. I take all the little back routes because I can't stand the number of people on Oxford Street as it is right now. But I love it when there's no traffic.
I don't mind it kind of west of Oxford Circus because the pavements get so much wider, particularly on the south side, on the north side rather, so that's much better.
I still take little side routes because I like to go quickly, fast, everywhere.
Nippy. Nippy Beatty, that's what we're renaming you.
Nippy Beatty, I like that.
Well, it's now 8:17. It's The Breakfast Show with me, Paul Ross, and in for Penny Smith, Nikki Beatty. And a plan to stop all cars and taxis from using a busy junction at Bank is due to be considered by the City of London. The idea is to remove all vehicles except for buses and cycles and make the junction a major public space within the square mile. These proposals will go before the city's Streets and Walkways Committee on November the 30th. And joining us now is Adam Rayner, a Harrow-based journalist for Fast Car magazine. Good morning, Adam.
Hello, Paul.
What do you make of this notion?
Well, it looks a little bit knee-jerky because a lot of people have been protesting rather a lot, and no matter how much you protest, we're not going to stop London from being a city with a medieval layout. 7 Dials isn't going to turn into a roundabout in Milton Keynes because a lot of people whinged about it. Taking all the vehicles off the junction for this 12-month little experiment was bragged about by the chairman of New London Architecture, who was basically over his ego. The thing is, these vehicles are going to have to be somewhere else.
I suppose the difference between 7 Dials, where I very rarely see a car, and this junction this is a very busy junction indeed. If
you see lots of cabs in 7 Dials, though, and they do careen around those corners.
But if you were to ban traffic from this apart from buses, the question is, I suppose, Adam, where would they go?
That's my entire point. Where the heck are the rest of the vehicles going to go? It's a little bit like the M25. You can increase traffic capacity and increase people using it by improving roads, and you just get more on it. But the people who are going to London are already doing it in the face of congestion charge, astonishing pressures to park and stop. They're not going to stop doing it. It may be better in that little spot for 12 months, but I'd like to have a little look at the maps around that area. I mean, the old lady of Threadneedle Street sticks out there, and you can't shift her either. There's just, I don't see where the traffic is going to go. It might stop problems in that one spot, but I can see them just transferring to half a mile sideways.
Adam, thank you for your time this morning. Adam Rayner there, a Harrow-based journalist for Fast Car magazine. Earlier, we heard from a cycling campaigner who said, of course, this was a dangerous junction and they'd organised a die-in there relatively recently to point out the dangers. Once again, that committee is convening in the city November the 30th to decide where to go to next. It's now 8:19, The Breakfast Show on BBC Radio London with me, Paul Ross, and in for Penny Smith, Nikki Beatty.
I do quite like the idea of pedestrianised areas in London, though.
Remind me, you're not a driver, though, are you?
No, I am not.
So you kind of have some skin in the game.
No, hang on. But the other thing is, I still use taxis. I take buses. So it does apply in many ways. I'm still using vehicles in the city. But also, I mean, do you really need cars in that area? There are other arterial roads that would take you away from that particular junction, aren't there? You tell me. I know it's a medieval part of the city.
I mean, traffic can always kind of ripple effect out, and I suppose deliveries could be made after working hours and that kind of thing. But, at the moment, it's very busy indeed. And the question is what the implications and indeed ramifications might be.
Ramifications?
Well, they're the same thing, really, aren't they?
I like that. Thank you very much.
BBC Radio London. It's 8:20. It's The Breakfast Show with me, Paul Ross, and Nikki Beatty.